Moving is often cited as one of the most stressful events in a person's life, from packing up years of memories to ensuring everything arrives safely at your new home. The process, well, it can be a little overwhelming. Have you ever worried about finding a trustworthy moving company or wondered how to protect your fragile items during transit? Maybe you're concerned about the costs and hidden fees that might pop up along the way. These are just a few of the many questions and fears that can make moving an overwhelming experience. Welcome to Realty Bytes Conversations on Real Estate and Lifestyle, the podcast that tackles all your real estate concerns with expert advice and practical tips. Today, we have a special guest, Davian Wright. Davian is a relocation consultant with AMJ Campbell, Canada's largest coast-to-coast mover. AMJ Campbell covers a host of moves, from local to long distance, and even international relocations. I know you have questions about the process of moving, and today we have an experienced moving consultant here to answer those questions for us and guide us with some helpful moving tips for a stress-free move. So whether you're moving now or planning to do so in the future, you won't want to miss this episode. If you or someone you know is making a move, this podcast is full of great advice and practical tips that you won't want to miss. Good morning, Davian, and welcome to the podcast.
Good morning, Evelyn. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you so much for coming. I know your schedule's really busy, especially at this time of the year. I'm so excited for you to be here because I have a lot of questions, and I'm sure our listeners do as well, about making moves less stressful. I know that even when I go on a short vacation and I have to pack a few little things, that can be a little stressful. You don't want to forget anything, or you don't want anything to break while you're traveling. So moving is just multiplied by so many times more. So thanks again for coming to share some of your insights. Before we start, maybe you can share a little bit about yourself, Davian, to our listeners.
Just a little bit about myself. I'm Davian Wright. I work for AMJ Campbell. I've been with the company for 5 years. I started from the front line and actually had the experience to see what goes on behind the scenes when it comes to moving, and also with the coordinator role as well. So it's nice to be able to have the internal and the external experience to kind of go along with the relocation consultant role.
Awesome.
It's been a great experience seeing a lot of the different types of moves that you can experience, whether it be local or long distance, and you learn from different scenarios.
Great. So you just mentioned that AMJ Campbell does local and long distance. Can you tell us a little bit more about the company?
Yeah, for sure. We've been around for 85 years, pretty much, in the relocation businesses. Now we have also 29 locations across Canada. So you can tell that we've spread across to be able to facilitate these relocations. But we've not only become a moving company in that time span, but a relocation company where the relationships that we've built over the years, we've been able to facilitate other things like creating services for high value items or vehicle relocation services as well. So AMJ Campbell is not just a moving company, but a relocation company. And relocation, as you know, is very tough, and you want to be able to have credible movers to be able to take care of people.
Great. So when someone is making a move, so they have got a firm date set that they have to be out of their existing home and into a new home, when should they actually be reaching out to you? Is it right away? Is it like a month before, a couple of weeks before?
Best practice is to reach out. I don't want to put a timeline, but I think the minimum should be, 4 weeks at least. That way you can get your foot in the door when it comes to getting crew availability. Now it kind of extends further when it gets to the busy periods from May to September. You want to reach out a little bit more in advance because you don't want to lose that type of opportunity to get your movement underway. So, something that's respectable. I usually like telling customers a month and a half to 2 months sometimes, just because the moving industry can be very busy at that time.
Right. And is there anything stopping somebody from reaching out to you? Like, say in January, they sell their house, but they're not going to move till September. Would it be okay to reach out in January and secure that spot, or is it too early to start planning?
It depends on the scenario, and in some cases that reaching out early can give you an idea of what you're looking at for the budget. Now, things that can change the dynamics of the move, like moving in the summer period. Maybe the rates might differ, but if you're reaching out in a time where at least you can get some sort of idea, it's the best thing for you. At least you can put away and have a budget in mind and say, okay, well, I'm prepared, instead of just leaving until last minute. So there's really no set time. If you come early, that's great. If you want to plan it in sequence where it makes more sense to get closer to the load date, that's fine as well. But I wouldn't leave it until past, 1 month until the move date.
Right. I know for me, I always like to have everything organized. So I'd be probably that person who would call you in January and say, I'm moving in September. Let's get it all settled. And I can organize in my head. But
Yeah, exactly. You know what? There's no wrong way to approach it. At least when it comes to relocations and planning ahead, that's the right approach to have, because that way you're not really you're not dancing forcefully trying to figure things out when it comes closer to the date.
right. And so if you were to book in January, AMJ would guarantee you that rate for September, or they won't guarantee the rate until just before. How does that work?
So usually the estimate is valid for 30 days. So say, for example, I've done this in the past where something has been estimated for September. I go based on, historical rates and provide you with an estimate based on the historical rates. And if you decide to move within that 30-day period of receiving that estimate, then that's something that's binding and that's fixed, and that's something that we take care of. And we note that in the internal notes, obviously, but at least you can get your foot in the door and possibly cheaper rates as well. So.
Okay, great. So you mentioned that AMJ does a variety of different types of services for their clients. Can you expand on that a little bit in terms of the actual move? So someone is moving and they need to get all their stuff put together. Does AMJ do anything other than the physical lifting?
Well, we offer other services like the pack and unpack services. And again, those are all dependent on the capabilities of the person that we encounter. So some people might want to have an all-inclusive service where, you get the packing, you get the unpacking, but you also get the relocation services as well. Sometimes you might have certain things like third-party services that are required. We're able to facilitate that and have that set up. But we do have numerous outlets when it comes to the services that we do provide.
Okay. What would a third service party, or you mentioned something about third service?
Well, third-party service is something that we can't facilitate, or something that would be too difficult for the crew to facilitate. So I've seen in the past, maybe have a gym and you want to move the gym. We actually have somebody come out to perform the disassembly and the assembly. But like, for example, if we're dealing with a long distance service, we also have resources long distance as well that will facilitate the assembly. So we organize everything. We get the costing. We incorporate that. We set that service up for you, and you don't have to do anything at all.
That sounds perfect.
Yeah.
Right.
It's beautiful. You know what? In a world where, people can be busy, sometimes it's important to be able to facilitate where you can. And we kind of understand that that's something that we need to do. And we're fortunate to have the resources that we have to be able to have a great, great company that we deal with when it comes to certain specialty services.
Okay, wonderful. So what types of questions should a consumer ask a mover when they're looking to find someone to hire?
One thing is the bonded and insured is a big, big topic for a lot of consumers. With us, we have bonded and insured workers, so we do have them vetted and they're background checked, and they're also covered under WSIB. Another thing to ask is, when it comes to the estimates, understanding if there's other components that are involved when it comes to estimate, what can change costing. Some companies might not disclose certain things, and with us, we have our standard practice is to be, full disclosure with our customers and clients. So like, for example, with me, if somebody said that they're looking to move certain things locally and they want to try to figure out a way to reduce costs, I would just say, if you do these things, this will help you go in the right direction when it comes to reducing time. Or if you don't do this, this is something that could affect the time, and which would then in turn mean increasing costs. So it's important to be full disclosure as well.
So when a consumer calls you and says, I'm looking to make a move, can you give me an estimate? What is the process? What happens next?
Well, we set up an appointment and we have somebody like myself come out to do the assessment. I consider myself a tailor because every move is different. So I'll come out and sit with the customer and kind of explain the process and what they can expect when it comes to a relocation like theirs. perform the walkthrough, get an idea of the quantity, which will then give me the information to decide what type of resources are required to perform the service. And then I send them a written estimate for them to observe costing.
Okay. So on moving day, what happens? Or is there anything that happens a couple of days before moving day?
Well, with us leading up to moving day, we have follow-ups. We have a coordinator, so a coordinator works alongside with us to kind of check in on the customers. It's not a one-man show, so it's a lot of moving components. We have the operations as well. The survey that I do helps them to plan things properly for move day. But leading up to move day, there's a lot of planning involved. If there's changes, we make those changes. When it gets to the move day, that's when the front line shines and provides the services that the customer requires.
So everybody has their very specific role to help make
Yes.
this move go smooth. That's
Of
great.
course. Yeah. So you have a great team that works along with each other to make it possible. So I'm not the only person. I'm just a surveyor, but we have a coordinator who's going to be having, face to face and, or well, not face to face, but phone discussions, email correspondence. I will be involved, but because of surveys, it's a little bit more difficult to be on top of things when it comes to communication. But I still try to stay very involved with the customers if they have any questions. We have the operations that will get the trucks and the resources ready. And then the frontline workers are coming in to say, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to execute it.
Right. So what would you say are some of the common mistakes that people make when they're making a move?
Ooh, that's a very, very good question. A lot of people leave it until last minute. I've bumped into a few when it comes to, the busy periods. You might have people that leave the move, like they'll know about the move, but they'll leave it until like they maybe 2 weeks prior to their actual move date. So that's a big, big issue just because you kind of lose that opportunity to get crews out. You might not have things prepared for the move, so that makes it a little bit more tougher for the move to be facilitated as well. So that's one big common one. Another common one is using garbage bags instead of packing things into boxes and bins. It's common, it's very common, but I try to preach that it's important to pack anything you can into boxes and bins just to make it very easy to move, but also very efficient. Very efficient. So those are the two common ones I usually see. I can't really say that there's really much, but those two, I think that has been a big, big issue, I would say, in the past little while that I've been seeing.
Okay. So now that we've got some of those issues that come out, what are some practical tips that you could give someone who's moving for the first time or the 10th time? What are some of the things that they should remember?
Yeah, for sure. One thing I really, really like telling customers is if you have heavy things, pack them into smaller boxes. And if you have bigger things that are lighter, you put them in bigger boxes. That way you're not overdoing it when it comes to overpacking items because you don't want those boxes to tear out. And when you're moving, it just flies everywhere and it becomes a mess. So that's one tip that I would give to customers. Another tip is to label things, and also with labeling, having items to prioritize as well. So if there are certain items that, you'd rather have prioritized, like medication, or maybe there's certain, I don't know, maybe there's certain china you want to take care of beforehand, before everything else, label them so A, you know what to take out, B, for the crew to be aware of it as well. When it comes to facilitating the move, so we can actually get it to you as soon as possible, or load it in sequence so it's actually easy and ready and accessible for you to receive at the other end.
Right. One of the things I tell my clients when they're looking to make a move is, as you said, label the boxes and also which rooms they go in. So it's what's in the box, what room does it go in, and then if it's one that needs to be opened first. So I usually say like there's an open first box. So the morning that after you move in, you're going to want your coffee pot. If you're like me, I need my coffee. I
Exactly.
need my favorite
Exactly.
mug, right? So, your linens for, so that you can make your bed right away, toothpaste, shampoo, those kinds of things. Kind of like if you're going on a vacation, but a little longer and
Yeah,
some
of
place
course.
that you have to, bring your linens with. But that way, at least when you get there, you kind of know what you need to start working on first. What about labeling where furniture goes? Would that be a good thing? So maybe you've got several couches in your house. One goes in the living room, one goes in the family room. Um, Is that something that you label, or you just do it when you get to the site?
That's something in most cases I've seen in the past that you can go multiple ways with it. I've seen in the past with blueprints. I've seen where customers actually have like rooms and say, hey, this one goes into this room. This one goes into this room. And we basically look at it and say, okay, that's where it goes. All right, no problem. We'll take care of that. Or on the receiving end, the customers might say, direct. And I think it's just important that any way that you communicate, you're communicating. That way it's sufficient. And there's really no right or wrong way to do that. It's just a matter of just being communicative and saying, hey, like, this is where I want certain things. Nothing's worse than putting things into the wrong room and then have to move it again, right? Because that's time. That's also, more stress, which is, it could be for both the homeowner and the crew as well. But we don't look at the stress. We look at trying to facilitate a service and taking care of you. So that's not even in our forefront when it comes to it. It's just to try to reduce the stress for you.
Okay, great. And so in terms of packing and packing boxes, you mentioned not to put them in garbage bags. I agree, because you can't really stack those too well. What are some other tips about the actual packing and putting together stuff to make that move?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like when it comes to packing, especially breakables, you want to make sure that there's no gap. You want to reduce any type of space that's inside. So a common way to do that is if you have packing paper and then making sure that it's kind of compressing everything together to minimize the movement for the contents. So that's a really, really good tip to pack. So at least, if you're dealing with breakables, for example, if you're lifting it, you're not hearing clink, 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 and then the possibility of breakages. So, if you can reduce the amount of movement inside the box, that would be the best thing for you.
Okay. That's good, because you think about just putting the stuff in the box, but yeah, you don't really often think about that moving. And I would think, okay, I'm going to wrap every dish, but in addition to that, having filler, I guess,
yeah,
it
exactly.
makes it like solid. It's kind of like when you get something from Amazon and it comes. I ordered something the other day. It was this tiny little bottle in this big box, but even then, and it was plastic. Even then, there was all this filler in it, and I thought, what? Wow, that's
Yeah, no, it's important, yeah, Amazon kind of overkills it, but you get the idea that they don't want your goods to be damaged. So, whether it be plastic or glass, I mean, they want to make sure that, hey, I gave it to you without any damages. Here you go.
and
You
it
can't come back
arrived
at us.
without any
It
damages. So that's a good thing.
exactly.
So, what types of things shouldn't a consumer put into the moving truck when they're doing that move?
Certain things are inadmissible. So a common thing and a common practice and information I usually relay out to customers is to make sure that liquids aren't in the shipment. If there are certain, like say oils and kitchen stuff, that's something that should be transported by the owner. You might get away with a couple things that are liquid, like maybe some soaps, but the best way to transport them is if they're in totes. If you do move them, have them in totes so if they do leak, they're contained. General practice, I don't usually like advising liquids because there's always the tendency and the possibility for leakages. But if you do have to pack it and you need it moved, the best way to have those liquids is to have them into totes. That's really the best approach to have.
Okay. What about things like personal items? Is there things that should or shouldn't go in there? I'm thinking like your computers, jewelry, medication. Like, should you be okay to put those in, or is it better for you to move those yourself?
With computers, we can move those. It's just a matter of how important it is to each customer. So everybody's different. Some people might say, I want to work as soon as possible. I want to work without having to wait for the truck to come with my goods. So they'll take, TVs maybe their modems for Wi-Fi and their laptops and the computers. So it's all dependent, but computers is fine to go onto a truck. If you're dealing with the items like medication, that's also dependent on if a person sees it as important to have at all times. I've seen it packed away if it's less prioritized medication. If it's something that's very prioritized, I would highly, highly recommend that it goes with the customer as well. Jewelry, I would suggest that it's transported with the customer only, that you spent so much money on it. The best way to have it is in your possession. So at least it's in your care.
Right. And You mentioned that the movers are bonded and insured. What about your contents? Are they insured for breakage, or is that a separate insurance you purchase?
That's something that comes standard on all our moves. So you can expect that your goods are going to be protected in transit. That's something that we've always stood by having something like that, because everybody pays money for their goods and you want that protected. So if there's anything to happen, you can file a claim, and we have a repair firm that we reach out to perform the repairs if it's something that's repairable, or if it needs to be replaced, we replace it.
Right. So, in the time that you've been in the moving industry, have you seen any changes in the way that things are handled?
Notably, I've seen that people are a little bit more cautious, I would say. From before COVID until now, a lot of people are a little bit more cautious about how their possessions are handled. Sometimes, you might have the case where some people might not want their goods to be handled a certain way, and they'll take care of it. Maybe on the logistics side, you see a little bit of changes here, but for like the consumer, from what I've seen, like from on a day-to-day basis, you might have some customers that are a little bit uncomfortable to be in contact with people still. So I think that's the most notable change on my end. I thankfully I haven't really seen that when I've done surveys. A lot of people are comfortable, but you still might have those cases where people are a little bit uncomfortable to meet with crews. But we also still facilitate and understand that people have these requirements, and if full PPE is required, we still take full PPE, and we make note of that in the notes, and for the customer to see that we actually care about what they want and need. So you can have the actual movers wear those full PPE as well. Yeah, for sure. Okay. For sure. We do. I've seen a couple cases where a little people are still uncomfortable with contact. And again, that's something that we understand. It's not like there's no judgment here. We're coming to service you. And if you feel comfortable in having us wear full PPE, we'll make that note, and we'll make sure that the cruise is taken care of. Right. I guess it's if people are sick, right? Because, yeah. So as we're closing out, learned a lot today. Is there one moving tip before you go that you want to share with our listeners? Oh, it's pack anything you can in boxes. It's so crucial. It's number one for me, because a lot of the times people don't realize how much not packing does affect a lot of things. When it comes to the local moves, it could add a tremendous amount of time. If you're looking to be efficient, that's the best way to do it. I couldn't stress that enough. Pack what you can. In addition, plan as well. Budget properly. Make sure that you actually reach out in good time, and don't leave until the last minute, just because it can be difficult for us to facilitate. And we don't want to leave customers hanging because we can't facilitate a move because it was last minute. So those are the two for me. Every time, if somebody says they want to confirm, just confirm in the time where we can actually facilitate. Right. And with your packing, you also have some special packing boxes, correct? Like things for garments and TVs and stuff. Yeah, for sure. We have all types of, when you get our packing services, you're getting our expertise and the different resources that come with it. So, when it comes to dishes, we have a specific carton that's specialized for, being more durable than your regular cartons. So they're thicker corrugated boxes. We have lampshade cartons. I don't know if people even know that lampshade cartons exist, but they're thicker cartons that are meant for putting lampshades in. They're much more thicker, much more durable. And the wardrobe, as you stated, that's something that, again, it's all dependent on how people, you're a well-dressed woman, so I'm sure you have a nice wardrobe of hanging clothes, but wardrobes are most handy for clothes like that. When you have very high value clothes that need to be on hangers, the wardrobes are perfect for that. I was thinking more of convenience. Here's my closet. Here's my new closet. I'm done, right? Yeah. That was more of what I was thinking. Yeah. But, it's all good. So if someone is considering a move, you'll come out to see them. There's no cost with that consultation, correct? Not at all. Not at all. Okay. What is the best way for people to reach out to you, Damien? You can reach me on my email at dwight@amjcampbell.com. And you can also reach me on the office line, 905-795-3466. And if you like myself, 647-522-2822. I'm best reached on myself, but you can send me an email and I'll respond to you as soon as possible if you can wait.
That's wonderful. We'll put all of that contact information in the show notes. So if anybody has questions or they'd like a consultation, they can reach out to you. So thank you once again so much for sharing your time and your expertise with us this morning, Davian.
Thank you, Evelyn. I appreciate you having me.
Great.